this part of the moral, the law of God, what is good and what is bad. The first part was more about what we need to know, to believe. The second part is what we have to do. And the first lesson is about the law of God and our conscience. The law of God, first of all, is God Himself. God is wise. God is wisdom. It means that God has this perfect balance, this perfect plan, this perfect order within Himself. God is the model of everything, He's the creator of everything, and in God there is a perfection. And this perfection that is in God will express itself during the creation, and God will translate this perfection in the nature, and He will write this perfection, this wisdom, this balance, this order in every creature He will create. We can see that so well in the course of the stars and the planets. They are so well ordered. They are always at their own place at the right moment. They define for us the moments of the years, the moment of the year, since so many centuries, because there is an order in the universe. This order is the expression of the wisdom of God. And now the law of God, first of all, is this wisdom of God, this eternal wisdom of God. And the second level of the law of God is now the translation of this wisdom in what we call the natural law, so what is written in the heart of the creatures. Of course, mainly for human beings, because for us we have freedom, we have a capacity to understand what is good and to do it willingly. Because the other creatures, they obey a design of God by force. It's a software. God has developed the universe, and it's a very good software that is implementing itself after. But for us, we are a part of risk in the universe because of our freedom, our capacity to understand what is the plan of God and to choose or not to implement it. This is where now we need a law to read the plan of God and decide to implement it. And first of all, this law, we found it in our own hearts. This natural law is written in our hearts. We know instinctively what is good and bad. God has given us this knowledge of the first principle of what is good and bad. Every man knows by himself that it's not good to steal, because he doesn't like when other people steal him, and he knows also that he should not do the same. We have that in our heart. This is a natural law. The natural law is teaching us the most important rules of morality. the homage due to God, how we should treat others because we know exactly how they should treat us, and now we have an idea of that we should not do what we don't want to be done to us, and we should do what we expect other people to do for us. We know that, and it's very clear, this conscience in all human beings, maybe the young one who have not been damaged by bad examples, the voice of the conscience has not been silenced by the perversion of the world. They know instinctively what is good and bad. And you can see some children at 3 years old, they are already aware that they are doing something wrong. It's very clear to see this conscience sometimes very clear. Virtue of truth and honesty. Thus, natural law is a definite expression of God's will, requiring obedience. Even a child or a pagan who has never heard of the Ten Commandments feels guilty when he has done something wrong. Besides the natural law, and at the next level, there is a revealed law. That is now God revealing himself something we should do. You can see that God has revealed the 10 Commandments. But most of the 10 Commandments, they belong to the natural law. But for more clarity, God has revealed the 10 Commandments. He has revealed the 2 precepts of charity. You will love God above everything. You will love your neighbor as yourself. That is the revelation of the law of charity. But this revealed law is only a repetition or amplification of the natural law. The 10 Commandments, which were given to the Jews through Moses, were not revoked by Jesus Christ. On the contrary, they were amplified and fulfilled. If you love me, keep my commandments. And by this we can be sure that we know him if we keep his commandments. And he who says that he knows him and does not keep his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. God's law, that divine reason and will of God, is perceived by men through the light of the intellect, by the voice of their conscience. What is conscience? Conscience is the manifestation of God's will that is made to men by the voice of reason, by the dictates of their intellects. Conscience is not another faculty we have. Conscience is just our reason, the voice of our reason. Our reason knowing the truth. Our right reason coming from God and expressing what is right, what is true. We call it sometimes the voice of God because it imposes on us the judgment of God. It bids us to do right and avoid wrong. Cain, who lived a long time before Moses, knew that he was committed evil in slaying Abel. Even today in pagan countries which have never heard of the commandments, men know right from wrong by their conscience. St. Paul is speaking about the conscience. The Gentiles who have no law, the revealed law of God, do by nature what the law prescribes. They show the work of the law written in their hearts. Their conscience bears witness to them. If we always obey the dictates of our conscience, we shall never offend God. It is a guide that He expects us to follow. This guide arises from knowledge of the law, whether natural or revealed. Before any action, conscience speaks either in favor or against. After the action, according as we have followed or disregarded it, conscience fills us with peace or disquiet. If a person is tempted to steal, he seems to hear an inward voice saying, "Do not steal. You know it is wrong to steal." This inward voice is conscience. Conscience tells us that God is our lawgiver, our judge, reward, and avenger. All of us, we have this voice of our conscience, and most of the time this voice is right. But now we are going to speak about a conscience that could be wrong, actually. Now let us, first of all, remind what is conscience. Just recap. There is the law of God, natural or revealed, like you have to go to Mass on Sunday. That is a positive law of the Catholic Church. We know it, and we know that if we don't go to Mass on Sunday, we sin. Because we know the law of God. Conscience is our reason knowing the law, knowing what is good and bad, and telling us, warning us about what we should do or avoid. We should always follow our conscience. When our conscience is telling us that if I do that, it is a sin, I should follow my conscience. Because my conscience is for me the proximate rule of morality. Because it is how my reason, my intellect will apply for me the law of God. There is a law of God, but there is also for me a need to see how to apply this law in my own situation. Because it is written, you will not kill, but now you have to defend yourself of someone who wants to kill your family and you. Can you kill at this moment? Can you defend yourself, even kill the person? No, you have to apply the law of God. And of course, there are moments where we can go to war and defend our country and kill our enemies. And our conscience is telling us it is right because this is a just situation. I have to defend myself against an injustice, unjust attack. But you can see there is a need to know when it is reasonable maybe to kill an enemy, or when it's not reasonable, it's too much. If someone has slapped you, there is no need to kill him, It is not proportional. But if he wants to kill all your family, and the only way is to shoot him now and stop him, you can do it. You can see your conscience is telling you how to apply the law to this particular situation. And we should always follow our conscience because it is a guide of our reason that has been given by God, and we should follow our reason. We know the truth, we know what is good and bad through our reason, and we follow our reason, we follow our conscience. But can the conscience be wrong? Can our reason make a mistake? Yes. Conscience is erroneous when we think that something right is wrong or that something wrong is right. An erroneous conscience arises from ignorance or a faulty knowledge of the law. As long as a person who has an erroneous conscience knows no better, he is not responsible for the evil he may do by following it. An erroneous conscience is a false one. You have been always told that, to steal food is okay. Because all of us, we need to live, and food, maybe it's not part of the good that it's wrong to steal. It's not right, but I imagine you have always been told that you should not steal, but food is different. If you need food, you can take food. Okay, that is not right, but you believe that. And for you, it's making sense because you have been explained, and it's logical. Your conscience is erroneous, but you are not sinning because you are not responsible for this mistake. After you go to catechism, you are told that you should not steal even food, and now you correct your conscience, you correct your reason, you admit your mistake. The catechism is given another example. A child tells a lie in order to save his younger brother from punishment. He thinks his duty to protect his little brother is superior to the telling of the truth. He has an erroneous conscience. And in this case, he commits no sin because he is thinking to do what is right, to protect his brother. However, everyone is required to strive for a correct knowledge of the law by studying his religion. In that way, he will form a correct or right conscience. If a person with an erroneous conscience believes something right is wrong and nevertheless does it, he is guilty of sin. Because he has violated his conscience and therefore willed to do wrong. An example that is given usually in moral theology is this house help who is telling children that it is a mortal sin to look at the moon. Of course, it's not a mortal sin to look at the moon. But the house help has told children, never look at the moon, it's a mortal sin. And now she has taught something wrong to the children. But now the children are very tempted now to look at the moon, and they want to see this moon now. And at night, they go outside and they look at the moon. And they have been told it's a mortal sin if you do it. And actually, if they do it, they will commit a mortal sin. Because they are convinced that it is a mortal sin. And they believe. And for them it is clearly a mortal sin to do it. But they want to look at the moon. And now they commit a mortal sin. You can see how it is important to have a clear and a right conscience and not to be led to maybe sin where there is no sin. One has a doubtful conscience when one does not know whether something is right or wrong. In this case, we should not act if we have a doubtful conscience about something, but we should wait till we can clear the matter up. Because if you don't know if you do is a mortal sin or not, I imagine, and you say, oh, let me do it, you take the risk to commit a mortal sin. And it means you accept to commit a mortal sin if it is a mortal sin. So, oh, I don't know exactly, let me do it. We cannot act in the doubt. We must know that what we do is good. If we don't know what we should not act. But we should be sure that what we do is good and not act in doubt. If one has a doubtful conscience, but yet must do something and cannot wait, he should say to himself that if he knew it was wrong, then he would not do it. No, in this case, you try to say, okay, I have to make a decision. I don't know exactly what to do, but let me choose what I think is the best option. But if I was told now that I should not do it, I will not do it. But because I have to decide, let me decide what I think is the best. You know. And if he is acting like that, he is not guilty of sin, even if he was to make a bad decision. Actually, if we take back this example of stealing food, there are some situations where it is allowed to steal food. In case you are in danger of death, and in a case of extreme necessity, all goods become common again. At the beginning of the world, all goods, all property were common to all men. Private property is good, but it has come later. And in the case of extreme necessity, all goods become again common. I imagine someone is seriously injured and has to be taken to hospital immediately, can just take any car in the street and go with the person. Because of the extreme necessity, you are allowed to take any car and go. You know? Because there is a hierarchy of principle. Okay, I imagine a child knows a bit of this thing, is not sure, but they have nothing to eat at home. His brother and sister are crying, and he say, may I go and steal and take food somewhere for my brother and sister, or I cannot do it? And he doesn't know exactly if it's okay or not okay, you know? Because he knows so well that he should not steal, you know? And he's ashamed to steal. But now he says, but I heard that in case of extreme necessity, it's right to save the life of someone, taking food where there is food. But now he doesn't know exactly, you know, if he can do it or not. And now he says, okay, maybe let me do it because they are dying of hunger. But if I was sure that it was wrong to do it, I would even not do it. I prefer to die than to commit a sin. I'll give you an example for what is a doubtful conscience. But it is clear that Saint Dominique Savio, with a young boy who died at 15 years old, he had this motto, better to die than rather to sin, even a venial sin. It's better to die. If it was a sin to steal this food, better all of us to die together than to commit even a venial sin. Better to die than to offend God. And that is right. What is a scrupulous conscience? A scrupulous conscience is a sick conscience that sees sin where there is none. A scrupulous person looks on temptations as sins. We must not encourage a scrupulous conscience. It is a mark of lack of confidence in the goodness of God. Someone who is scrupulous is fearing always to commit sin where there is no sin. Maybe he has just seen a person who was badly dressed in the street, and now he says, I have committed a mortal sin. No, you have not committed a mortal sin. You have just seen a person in the street. There is no sin to see, like that. There is difference to watch bad video willingly. Yeah, this is a mortal sin, But you have seen like that, someone passing by. There is no sin. Unless now willingly you have a bad desire watching what is wrong. But a scrupulous person will say, I cannot go and receive because I have committed a mortal sin. Which mortal sin? Quickly I was in the street and I saw a bad picture somewhere. It's not a mortal sin. When a scrupulous person is tempted, he worries himself sick, believing he has committed sin, even when he has not yielded to the temptation one reads. Even when he had actually abhorred it. Scruple is something difficult to solve, and it has to be solved by obedience to someone who will clarify for you what is right or not. Saint Teresa of the Child Jesus had a big crisis of scruple when she was young. And she was thinking that everything was wrong. And she had to obey her sister, telling her what was right or not. And she had to believe her sister to do what was good. The opposite of a scrupulous conscience is an unscrupulous or lax conscience. One with such a lax conscience convinces himself that man is too weak to resist sin, and so all sin is negligible. And he will say, to make a mistake is human, And he will give him excuses. He will excuse himself too easily now. And you know what? This is now what is wrong. A lax conscience will see sin nowhere. And even a man who can come back home totally drunk will say, it's normal to drink a bit of alcohol. No, it's not normal. It's a mortal sin, actually, to be drunk. But we say, everybody does it. And even on TV, everybody is getting divorced and get married again or had some adventure with other people. Everybody does it. It means I can also do it. Or you say, but in this country, abortion is legal. And what is legal is good. Even I can go for abortion. No. Your conscience has to be right. It's not because there is a bad law in a country allowing abortion that it is become good to kill babies now. Okay? A law is not making something bad becoming good. This is why it is important for us to have a right conscience. This is why we teach catechism. This is why we tell faithful, go for catechism. That the reason of the children and even the faithful is judging well about what is good and bad. A lax conscience is careless. It makes say that ordinary sins are just something we can commit easily, or we'll call a mortal sin a venial sin, and we'll say, it's okay, it's not so serious. And some people can lose their conscience totally, because they have been living against their conscience. At the beginning, they were worried about sin. They were feeling bad about sin. But because they get used to it, they even stop to feel bad. And now they stop even to think that they are doing something wrong. Because they have silenced so much the voice of their conscience that now it is totally quiet and they don't hear the voice of their conscience and they even don't think about the morality of their actions. It's a very serious state because these people can live in a state of mortal sin. They are even not aware of it because they are so used to, and they will die in mortal sin and go to hell like that because they have lost totally the habit to listen to the voice of their reason, of their conscience. What is a delicate or tender conscience? A delicate or tender conscience is one which impels us to avoid anything in the slightest degree evil. And it's good to have a delicate conscience, to be sensitive to evil and avoid it. We should be most careful to keep our conscience delicate. It is a terrible thing for one to live as if he had no conscience. It is a tender conscience to escape such things as self-reproach, shame, remorse, dismay, and fear, because it is ever before God, who gives it peace and hope. A tender conscience is a conscience of the saints. It is a conscience that good Christians should cultivate. Then they will do not anything the least displeasing to God. At the beginning of Christian life, we try to avoid maybe mortal sin when we convert. After, we avoid venial sin that we do willingly. And after, we try to avoid even imperfection, that's very small sins that we even try to avoid because we have a delicate conscience. Gloria